Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Yes, it's the Skeptic Zone podcast, episode number 682 for the 31st of October 2021. Halloween here in Australia, and in a few hours more it'll be Halloween in other parts of the world. And if you like Halloween and if you do Halloween-y type things, have fun. I don't mind Halloween. Halloween is lots of fun. And I think especially of my friends in Melbourne who at long last have the opportunity to break out and enjoy the wonderful offerings of maybe Melbourne City, getting out to the countryside. They've been in lockdown for a very long time. Maybe Melbourne people, you can enjoy some nice red wine and peanuts. Coming up on today's show, it's a bit of a spooky one with Maynard's Spooky Action. An important Maynard Spooky Action. Maynard and I joined Associate Professor Siobhan O'Sullivan for a spooky tour of a local suburb which is said to have Sydney's most haunted street. So the three of us wander around at night, torches in hand, stumbling around the back areas of Sydney. And Siobhan has been on the Skeptic Zone before to tell us about her journey with ovarian cancer. And I must tell you, folks, she has quite the attitude towards it. She is living life to the fullest. She is getting out there. She is spreading the message for women about ovarian cancer. An important Maynard's Spooky Action indeed. So important that on today's show, the whole segment goes for about, something like 20 minutes. But the whole adventure lasted almost an hour. So I've put the whole adventure, not the edited highlights, but the whole adventure on YouTube. And if you are a subscriber to the Skeptic Zone on YouTube, that will come up in your feed. Or if you go to this week's show notes, you'll see the link to the special extended content of the story. And there's a little map. And as we walk around the haunted area, you can follow our progress on the little red dot. So check that out if you enjoy the segment with Dr. Siobhan, Associate Professor Siobhan. Check out the extended segment. Following that, it's the Book of Tim with Tim Mendham. Tim reads from the pages of the Skeptic magazine, and this week looks at Sturgeon's Law. Then it's our reporter in Melbourne, Michelle Bickersma, who I hope is getting out and enjoying the city and the countryside. In fact, I know she's been to the countryside lately. She went and discovered she had a letter waiting for her in her letterbox, all about an octopus, with a hand-drawn picture of an octopus on the envelope. This is very mysterious. Find out more with Michelle Bickersma. Then to round off the show, because it's Halloween, I dive into the decades of digitized newspapers here in Australia to search for references in the past to Halloween here in Australia. Well, that's enough for me at the moment. I'm going to run downstairs and have something scary and ghastly and spooky to drink or eat. Maybe I'll make some toast and cut it into shapes of ghosts or something like that. While I do that, I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone.
Here's Maynard's Spooky Action at a distance.
Glebe's known for lots of things. Trotting, lots of other stuff I can't mention on the Skeptic Zone, or Richards will cut it out, but it's known for a lot of things, let me tell you. And it's known for arches. Hear this arch. In fact, not many people know that all the work of 2 Unlimited was done underneath this arch. There's no limit. Oh, and by the way, I'm standing next to someone who claims that this is perhaps one of the spookiest areas in Sydney. It's Dr. Siobhan O'Sullivan. And look, she's you might know her from Knowing Animals. You might know her from her work about privatising the unemployment system. But tonight, you're going to show us Glebe's spookiest place.
Well, thank you. It's so wonderful to be here sharing. This is my local area, and it's wonderful to be sharing the spookiness with you.
What drew you to this spooky area? We're just next to the famous tram sheds, which were abandoned for many years when they were even spookier and used for sort of all sorts of things as when they were abandoned. Man, that was a time to be in those tram sheds when there was nothing in there.
Well, I am an Annandale resident, so I'm a local, and I'm always keeping an eye out for local Annandale news. And when I discovered that there's a street with no name very close to me, and apparently it's also haunted, I had to look into it further. And of course I needed the skeptics with me.
Cool. Well, let's go have a look, because I've been reading up on my woo before this, so I know what to talk about everything. Richard, how are you feeling about this? Because I know, Richard, ghosts don't exist. You're just having an existential crisis. I know you.
I think I must be here as a token skeptic. No, it's great to see you, Dr. Siobhan.
Yes.
Haven't seen you for a little while. And actually, Maynard, Dr. Siobhan wrote to the Skeptic Zone and said you should check out Sydney's most haunted street.
She took the time to do that, but she did not mention your haircut in her email. Do something about your hair. Anyway. Yeah.
You're both looking very dapper. You've both emerged out of lockdown looking very groomed and fresh-faced, ready to go.
Well, I've just been doing sit-ups, just the one, but it was great.
Well, then that's singular. Sit-up.
But I am keen to explore Sydney's most haunted street. So, Dr. Siobhan, we are at the first spooky-looking gate. What's beyond the gate? I can't tell. It's overgrown. We're by this tram line. Is this above us here or something like that? It looks scary.
That used to be the goods railway, and now you'll find that that's the light rail that goes over there, yes. Richard, yeah.
Let's go in.
Get this noise, people.
The gate opens. And Siobhan's braver than us. Maynard, she's going in.
Well, you'll be glad to know that I'm playing the part of Scooby in tonight, and I've prepared a coding. Now, you say that this is this a laneway, or what is this exactly?
This is called the street with no name. My sincere suspicion is that it's actually just a little bit of government land in a very inaccessible spot, and that's why it's not been given a name.
Right.
But also, on a more serious note, perhaps, I also do think that perhaps some people do use it to sleep rough. I don't think anyone's here at the moment.
Oh, okay. Well, it's getting on dark. There might be, in which case we should leave them alone if that's the case.
I suspect there's no one at the moment, but there's quite a few bits of clothing and things you could fashion makeshift accommodation out of.
I see. Right.
Oh, yes, okay. Well, Maynard's venturing on ahead.
I'm having a bit of a look. I don't want to disturb anybody.
I'll follow Maynard through this growth here.
Okay, yes, it's kind of eerie.
It's a little bit scary. What was that? Oh, it's you. I'm getting the creeps already, folks.
Yeah, this
is making our way along here.
Yeah, okay. Well, I think someone's there, but I don't think anyone's up there. So what is supposed to have happened here, Siobhan?
Siobhan's just following us up with their torch.
Santa's beard. Yeah.
Actually, when I came here in the day to have a look, in this very tree that we are standing under right now, we saw 3 kookaburras. And I thought, isn't it nice that there are some spots where humans don't dominate and wildlife can have a bit of peace and time to themselves?
Yes, I'm just wondering if you'd get possums here or anything, maybe perhaps a Tasmanian tiger.
Perhaps, although perhaps the ghosts scare them off, we don't know.
I must admit that, Maynard, there is a bit of a spooky atmosphere here because we've got this wall right here. We've got the side of the hill coming down. And it does have an eerie quality.
I think it's mainly eerie because it's dark, there's no one around, and you don't know if there might be actually live humans here, which would probably be the big problem. I think my parents used to say, you don't have to worry about the cemeteries. The dead people can't do anything to you. It's the live ones you've got to worry about. And having worked for the ABC, I can certainly agree with that.
Maynard's just gone up ahead, Dr. Siobhan. It's very dark.
It is very dark. Now, you can also enter from the other side, and I think if we keep going a little bit, we might actually be able to exit as well. So I think we might have done the whole street with no name.
It's hard to describe because we've got all the trees and the hill right on our right side.
No. Around to see the other side then.
We've come to a dead end, we might say.
It's a dead end.
It's a dead end.
But we did find 3 old tents.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. A lot of Catholic cigarette butts.
And air conditioning panels on our right as we exit here with the...
And a whole lot of graffiti, which is a bit of a pity because some of it's actually good, but no one's ever going to see it in here.
Yeah.
Oh, and a pair of pants. That's good.
And a pair of haunted pants, probably.
Oh, and a whole bunch of huntsman spider in that.
Ugh.
Oh, yeah, I don't like huntsman.
All right. They're ducking through this sort of growth here, so it's not too bad, but it's not a straight walk to get out.
It's sort of like Apocalypse Now without the drama and the budget.
That's right. It's on the cheap. We can't afford very good ghosts, I'm afraid. We've got to settle for what we get.
Got to say, as far as non-local consciousness goes, I don't think this is a place that has any.
Non-local consciousness?
Yes. Obviously, Dr. Rupert Sheldrake is a guy who listens to the Skeptic Zone fairly often.
Often, all the time.
And, of course, I've watched half his TED Talk.
Half?
Half his TED Talk. Yeah, look, I saw where he was going. Didn't have to see the second half. And boy, did that stir people up. It was called The Science Delusion. Oh, boy.
Ooh.
Why are you giving that man a platform?
Now we've come back and we're under this arch again.
Well, that wasn't too bad. I imagine it was a bit scarier then than it was during the day for you.
Yes, and I didn't go as deep in, so I think we really, really penetrated the street with no name.
Because I thought that was going to go all the way up to the top, but that must be another street that goes down the side of the tram sheds.
Now, as we're strolling along, Siobhan, Skeptic Zone listeners will remember I interviewed you, was it April or something like that? May or something like that. Now, you have been undergoing quite the adventure. Quite the adventure. Just for the sake of our listeners who may not have heard that episode, you were a podcaster doing Knowing Animals, of course. Very good podcast about animal welfare, basically. And then you received the news that you were diagnosed with ovarian cancer.
Yes, that's right. In start of August 2020, last year, I was feeling quite bloated and a bit unwell. I couldn't really put my finger on what it was. I ended up in the emergency room at RPA, which is one of the big public hospitals in Sydney, and I was told that I had ovarian cancer, stage 3. Since then, I have gone through the standard procedure, the standard treatment, which is 6 rounds of chemotherapy and surgery to remove the cancer. But I've been very unlucky. The cancer had already spread basically before they stopped the primary treatment, and then I was moved on to another chemo. But then after a couple of rounds, I was chemo-resistant, meaning that chemotherapy couldn't work for me anymore. So this is what happens, unfortunately, with ovarian cancer. You know, I was about 20 years younger than the average age of diagnosis, and within kind of 8 months, I was basically terminally ill. And so I was given a couple of options. One was to stop all treatment and I would die by Christmas this year, so in a month. Or I could go back to a really old chemotherapy drug and I would lose all my hair, I'd have to have it once a week, I'd be constantly sick and I'd live a year. Or I could look around for a drug trial. Mm-hmm. So with options like that, I decided to look around for a drug trial. So thankfully I am on that drug trial. I have had 1 round and so far it has shown that the tumours aren't growing. So I stay on it until the tumours start growing and then I'm out of treatment options. So I'm hoping to live another 1.5 years. That's what I would like, at least. I've been told to look around for another drug trial, but finding another ovarian cancer drug trial is not as easy as it sounds. So that's my situation, and one of the things I want to do is raise awareness about ovarian cancer, because it is this really anomalous cancer. It is not like so many other cancers where it can be quite effectively treated and a large majority of people would be expected to live for quite a while, if not have remission. Ovarian cancer has something like a 25%, survival rate, and it's a real killer, and we need research.
Is that reason because it's usually discovered late because it isn't found early?
It is a real creeper. So you get almost no symptoms. You get this feeling that you're a little bit bloated, but quite frankly, during COVID, who doesn't feel quite a bit bloated? And of course, for many women, most women, they get it later in life, and so you'll have skipped periods and things like that, but that's also part of getting older. So a lot of people just think my body's changing with age, but in fact, it may well be ovarian cancer.
Even in the early stages, is there any biomarker in blood or anything like that that will tell it, like a prostate PSA test, that sort of thing?
Yes, there is. There is quite a reliable marker in the blood. When I went to my GP and said, I feel bloated, I don't feel well, the first GP said to me, go home and take laxatives. So I did that for about 3 days and I felt so terrible. Every day I felt worse and worse and worse. I went back to my practice, saw a different doctor, and he tested me for that marker, and it was very elevated. It's supposed to sit below 25. In my case, it was around 400. But the problem with that marker is that after a while your body works out how to keep it low even though the cancer's growing. So it's all quite... The real way to find out if you have it is a CAT scan. But one of the reasons it's such a nasty disease and we're so desperate to get some research and some answers is that I was diagnosed at the start of August 2020, and it's very likely that on the 1st of January 2020 I did not have ovarian cancer. So it is a really fast-growing cancer. There is a version of it that isn't fast-growing, but the one I have, which is the more common one, is fast-growing.
So even if you had a yearly blood test looking for that marker, you could still miss it, and that 6 months would be enough to cause problems.
Absolutely. And another thing that is really tragic and makes me feel so sad and a little bit despairing about the research side of ovarian cancer is that a very, very large study was conducted actually by my Vice-Chancellor at my university, which is UNSW Sydney, and they had a look at a lot of data from the NHMO, from the UK that they'd collected in the UK, and what they found was that even early detection didn't mean that you could save people's lives. So even getting it early, you still have these terrible outcomes. So what we need to do is either find a way to get it really early, or we've got to find a way to effectively treat it. Or both.
Now, did you ever at any stage go to Dr. Google and be horrified?
Do you know, it's interesting. I didn't Google it up immediately. I was diagnosed through emergency at RPA. It was during COVID. It was a very traumatic and upsetting experience. And even my doctor at RPA emergency, the first thing he said was, it's probably appendicitis and we'll just rule out the really nasty things, etc. And they put me in CT scan machine and then they saw the cancer. And I was in a real state. I ended up at Chris O'Brien Lifehouse, which is a really lovely cancer hospital, and it's the kind of place that I would encourage listeners to support if they're in a position to support a hospital that's really trying to do good work. But I was a mess. I was there for about 2.5 weeks, and I can't tell you, I was not in a good position. A lot of friends have since said that they didn't think I was even going to get out of hospital that first time I was there. I was very, very sick. And so I didn't really Google it up. I was so nauseous. I couldn't really look at a screen. I was just trying to hang in the game.
And a lot of people use words in cancer like battling cancer. And I've spoken to Adrian Edmondson, whose wife, Jennifer Saunders, had breast cancer, and he said that that's not great. It's more like a roller coaster ride through shit. And I'm sure they don't like to use that kind of language on Channel 7 or Channel 9, but to someone who's had that sort of experience, is battle just a really bad word? Because it indicates you can actually change something where you can't always.
Exactly. I have asked my friends and family to really think about avoiding the vocabulary of battle, particularly when I die, which is what is going to happen to me fairly soon. And the reason why I don't appreciate that use of language is it suggests that I have agency, and if only I fought harder, did that, then it would go away. And the extension of that is that I brought this on myself with the wrong type of thinking or whatever else. And not only do I think that is incorrect, But also it means that all the little children that get cancer, they also had the wrong type of thoughts. They didn't think in the right ways. And I think that is so nasty and so unhelpful. So I've asked my treating doctors numerous times over, what can I do to help myself? And they say the same thing over and over again. Stay away from sick people because I'm immunocompromised, and turn up for your appointments because the doctors are the ones that are going to keep me alive. Well, look, I have decided that one of the things I want to do before I die is raise awareness and funds for ovarian cancer treatment. So it really is one of the most deadly cancers you can get, definitely most deadly cancer for women, and that has to change. It's too late for me. I'm going to die of ovarian cancer. That's what's going to happen. But there are young women out there who do not have to suffer that same fate. We need research, and research requires funds. So I'm doing as much as I can whenever I'm getting an opportunity to do it. So it's various things. So for me to give myself meaning in this last period of my life is to try and make the world a better place for women with ovarian cancer.
And what should they do, Siobhan? Where should they go? Where on the web?
Yeah. Well, there are lots of different places where you can make a donation that would be really meaningful. So the Ovarian Cancer Research Foundation is somewhere you could donate to. There's there's ovarian cancer support group. So, for example, I have a nurse who rings me up every 6 weeks to answer my questions, and that's all money that's raised through funds. Chris O'Brien Lifehouse is also a good place. They do all kinds of cancers, but they've supported me. So there's lots of different ways that you can support.
Look now, there's a cute cat walking. I think the cat's
there because
after
the rat, right?
The cat's going,
Look,
I think
the cat
there
is
could
going
be
through
some,
the haunted gate here.
There's going to be some... I think that cat's a mouser or a ratter.
Well...
I was talking gleefully and I didn't even realise it a haunted gate.
I think you've made a very important message to our listeners, Siobhan, and thank you for that. And folks, I must tell you that one of the reasons I'm here, because Siobhan wrote to me and told me about this place. She said, well, I'm looking for places to haunt after I die.
Well, this brings us to non-local consciousness. Now, you do live around here, don't you?
Yes.
Well, so with non-local consciousness, that does not mean you're limited physically to any area around you. In fact, I would probably say that Dr. Rupert Sheldrake and people other like that could say you're not even limited to this planet, I would say. I'm not quite sure. Non-local consciousness means that you can go into the consciousness...
Where's the cat?
The cat. Another.
It disappeared. It disappeared. We're at this other gate
being
here.
A cat, the cat's just going to hide somewhere and then just jump on the mouse as it goes past.
We can't get through this gate.
Yeah, so this is one of the images that you see a lot in the photos. And I mean, it does indeed have more road-esque qualities here.
Yes, it does.
But that said, it to me looks very much like unuseful government land that occasionally is driven into for maintenance and gardening.
Oh, he's getting that black light out again. You'll probably see the body of a dead mouse later on, I would feel.
You never know. Well, the cat disappeared. It was there.
No, there's a cat.
See, there's the cat. See?
If you look over
he's sitting.
Come over here.
See, he's sitting and looking there.
Oh, yes.
See, I'm probably helping the cat slightly. I don't know if I'm wiping out his night vision or not. But
unsurprisingly, we saw a rat and then we saw a cat.
Yeah. Fox Mulder here, otherwise known as Maynard. Thank you for listening. I wouldn't say it's an X-file. It might be an X-file with an EX, maybe, that kind of file, but it hasn't been too spooky. I did get scared by a huntsman spider, but then again, that could happen anywhere, folks. Yeah, and there was a rat, and there was a cat.
And a cat.
And a small mouse, which I think is... And we're under a vat. Look, listen to that. Isn't that fantastic? Oh, you have to say...
Hello.
He said...
Hello.
Scully, I think it's a contagion. What? A contagion. There you go. That's just about in every third episode of the X-Files. The words contagion gets mentioned, and now it's just overused now. You don't use it anymore. And it's been wonderful having a walk and a chat and seeing the rat with you.
Oh, thank you. It's so fabulous to be back on the Skeptic Zone. Such a joy.
It's been wonderful having a chat to you. Good to hear you laugh again too.
Oh, thank you.
Hello, this is Maynard. Did you know that you can listen to the Skeptic Zone on YouTube? Yes, I know, sounds crazy, but it's true. Also, you can hear 40 logical fallacies with Michelle Bickersma and funny sketches with Richard Saunders and a host of other skeptics. Just click on the YouTube links on the homepage at skepticzone.tv.
And now, a reading from the Book of Tim with Tim Mendham.
Hi, my name's Tim Mendham. I'm the editor of The Skeptic, the magazine of Australian skeptics, of which I'm also executive officer. And today I'll be reading from the magazine The Skeptic from an article that appeared in June 2012, which was volume 32, number 2. And this is from the section of the magazine we call What Goes Around, which is based on the idea that you can start with one bit of information, work your way through associations and come back to where you started from. And this time we're looking at crap, Trekkies, racism and the doomed. Let's start off with Sturgeon's Law. And that's the name given to two different adages derived from quotes by science fiction author Theodore Sturgeon. The first is, nothing is always absolutely so. And the second, and perhaps the more famous one, is 90% of everything is crap. Sturgeon himself commented that Sturgeon's Law was originally the first version. The second was originally known as Sturgeon's Revelation. The meaning of Sturgeon's Law was explicitly detailed by Sturgeon himself. He made his original remarks in direct response to attacks against science fiction that used the worst examples of the field for ammunition. Using the same standards that categorise 90% of science fiction as trash, crud or crap, it can be argued that 90% of films, literature, consumer goods, etc. are also crap. In other words, the claim or fact that 90% of science fiction is crud is ultimately uninformative, because science fiction conforms to the same trends of quality as all other art forms do. Sturgeon's most famous novel, More Than Human, which came out in 1953, won serious academic recognition, particularly in Europe, where it was seen as high-quality literature. Sturgeon wrote the screenplays for the Star Trek episodes Shore Leave, 1966, and Amok Time, 1967, later published as a photo novel in 1978. The latter is known for his invention of the Pon Farr, the Vulcan mating ritual, the first use of the phrase live long and prosper, and the first use of the Vulcan hand symbol, just like this. The four fingers kept apart with a space in the middle. At a time when racial segregation was still firmly entrenched in many areas of the United States, Gene Roddenberry, the creator of Star Trek, envisaged a multiracial and mixed-gender crew, based on his assumption that racial prejudice and sexism would not exist in the 23rd century. His inclusion of the Asian Sulu and black Uhura, both of them intelligent, well-spoken professionals, was a bold move when most television characters of the time were white, and those who weren't were often presented in a highly stereotypical manner. He also included recurring characters from alien races, including Spock, who was half human and half Vulcan, united under the banner of the United Federation of Planets. Star Trek introduced television viewers to many ideas which later became common in science fiction films, and some even in real life. Warp drive, teleportation, wireless handheld communicators, as if, and scanners, directed energy weapons, desktop computer terminals, God, out there, laser surgery, starship cloaking devices, and computer speech synthesis. Although these concepts had numerous antecedents in sci-fi literature and film, they had never before been integrated in one presentation, and most of them were certainly new to TV. Developers of Google Earth and the Palm PDA, if you can remember that, acknowledged Star Trek's influence, not to mention NASA's prototype space shuttle, the Enterprise, which was named after the Star Trek main vessel. The series frequently included characters, usually security personnel wearing red uniforms, who are killed or injured soon after their introduction. So prevalent was this plot device that it inspired the term red shirt, to denote a stock character whose sole purpose is to die violently in order to demonstrate the dangerous circumstances facing the main characters. When a plot twist turns Captain James T. Kirk into an ensign, a crew member says, "Let's just say that on this ship you don't want to wear a red shirt on landing party duty." In the Family Guy episode, I Never Met the Dead Man, Captain Kirk announced that the landing party to a planet would consist of himself, Mr. Spock, Dr. McCoy, and a certain Ensign Ricky wearing a red shirt, to which the ensign interjects, crap. Which brings us back to Sturgeon's law. 90% of everything is crap. That's What Goes Around from the Skeptic magazine, issue from June 2012, volume 32, number 2, and you can download the entire issue of that magazine, including most issues of The Skeptic, from our website, skeptics.com.au, and it's free.
G'day, this is Dr. Karl Kruszinski, proud to be a skeptic, and you can find out more about me at drkarl.com and get lots of free stuff there as well.
Hi, it's Michelle Bickersma here, and I just wanted to share with you a remarkable letter that I found in my letterbox at my beach shack on Victoria's great surf coast. I was going down there to do some fire prevention cleaning and haven't been for 3 months over winter due to lockdown, and I cleaned out the letterbox, and to my delight I found some handwritten mail, a rare treat today, and at first glance I noticed a carefully drawn octopus. It's not a brilliant work of art, but it does have some detail and effort. It's coloured in orange with some purple spots, and it has tentacles and detail like that. I thought it must have been the local primary school students maybe undertaking a special project in lockdown for the neighbourhood, as in Melbourne we have really been invested in our local areas over lockdown. However, on the back of the envelope next to the octopus it says, "Was it designed? The amazing arm of the octopus." That was a little clue to the contents, really. Anyway, rather than discard it on the spot, I decided to read the letter, especially because it was handwritten on some kind of writing paper, and this is what it says. The octopus can grab, hold, and squeeze objects with its 8 extendable and flexible arms, even in tiny places. Not only can the octopus bend its tentacles in any direction, but it can also stiffen different sections of its arms as needed. Researchers believe that a similarly soft, flexible robot arm would be invaluable in performing complex procedures. Such a robotic arm has already been developed and is being used in simulated operations. One part of the 135mm arm can manipulate soft internal organs by lifting and holding them without causing any damage to them. What do you think? Did the arm of the octopus evolve, or was it designed? To find out more about God's creations, visit jw.org. Kind regards, Jalen W. Now, I was delighted by the effort of the artwork and handwriting, and kind of charmed by the imagination of the person, that they ponder the wonders of the world, yet at the same time disheartened that they clearly didn't come to the conclusion that the octopus has evolved. I don't know. What do you think? Was it designed? I'm pretty sure I know the answer is no, it evolved. This is Michelle Bickersma signing off.
Hallo aan alle Nederlandse luisteraars. Op dit moment bent u aan het luisteren naar de Skeptic Zone, voor wetenschap en kritisch nadenken. Voor meer informatie ga naar www.skepticzone.tv.
Now it's time once again to have a look into those digital archives at Trove. Trove.nla.gov.au, your online resource for digitised newspapers, gazettes, periodicals, magazines, journals, notes, diaries, and so on. But mostly newspapers, I think. And since today is Halloween, I thought I'd look up exactly that. References to Halloween throughout the decades and decades of Australian newspapers digitised online. Now, many people here in Australia are of the opinion that Halloween is a more recent American thing that's come to Australia. Certainly when I was growing up, we knew of Halloween, but we didn't go out trick-or-treating or anything like that. It simply wasn't a thing. Although over the last 2 decades, it's become more and more popular, until now, every Halloween, there are lots of kids running around all dressed up as ghosts and ghouls, visiting houses. And you know what? I think it's a lot of fun. One of my first experiences of Halloween was in the little town of Tribune in Saskatchewan, Canada, in the late 60s, when I was only a very small boy, dressed up as a ghost or a ghoul or something like that. Now let's look to see what has been written, kept in the archives, and we start with the Brisbane Courier, dated the 27th of October, 1932. Halloween Rites. All Hallows Eve, or Halloween, will be celebrated once more next Monday, and the underlying idea of supernatural influences and ghosts being abroad will colour the festivities, public and private, that are usually arranged on that day. The celebrating of Halloween seems to be a relic of pagan times, though its origin is shrouded in mystery. An authoritative writer on the subject, however, comments as follows. There is a remarkable uniformity at the firesides of this night all over the United Kingdom. Nuts and apples are everywhere in requisition and consumed in immense numbers. Indeed, the name of Nutcrack Night, by which Halloween is known in the north of England, indicates the predominance of the former of these articles in making up the entertainments of the evening. In Ireland, when the colleens would know if their sweethearts are faithful, they put 3 nuts upon the bars of the grate, naming the nuts after the lovers. If a nut cracks or jumps, the lover will prove unfaithful. If it begins to blaze or burn, he has regard for the person making the trial. If the nuts named after the girl and the lover burn together, they will be married. This custom used to be well practised in England. On All Halloween, according to Brand and Pennant and others, many people in the north of England dive for apples or catch at them when struck upon one end of a kind of hanging beam at the other extremity of which is fixed a lighted candle. This they do with their mouths only, their hands being tied behind their backs. In an ancient illuminated missal, in the Dance collection, a youth is represented balancing himself upon a pole laid across two stools. At the end of the pole is a lighted candle, from which he is endeavouring to light another in his hand, at the risk of tumbling into a tub of water placed under him. One charm consists in eating an apple before a looking-glass. You must take a candle and go alone to a looking-glass and eat an apple before it. Some traditions say you should comb your hair all the time. The face of your conjunctional companion will then be seen in the glass as if peering over your shoulder. Perhaps one of the most popular games with apples is to set them afloat in a tub of water, into which the juveniles, by turn, duck their heads with the object of catching one. This sport causes much fun amongst the youngsters, who make for the apples with stalks, though many deftly suck the apple, if a small one, into their mouths. But there are many ways of securing an apple. Another custom much practised on Halloween was 3 dishes. 2 of these are filled, one with pure spring water, the other with water not so clean, and the other dish is empty. They are ranged on the hearth, when the parties blindfolded advance in succession and dip their fingers into one. If they dip into the pure water, they are to marry a maiden. If into the other, a widow. If into the empty dish, the individual is destined to be either a bachelor or an old maid. As each person takes his turn, the position of the dishes is changed. What a fun game that sounds like. Modern ideas which have been introduced for Halloween celebrations include the Broom Dance, in which one person is given a broom dressed as a ghost or a witch for a partner. When the music stops suddenly, as in musical chairs, the dancer drops the broom and all change partners, and he who does not secure a partner must dance with the broom till the next stop comes. Another novelty dance consists in distributing cards bearing figures of black cats, pumpkin heads, owls, witches, bats, spider webs, and ghosts. The men must seek the corresponding card and dance with the girl who has it. The director of the dance, having chosen beforehand which shall be the lucky figure, calls at intervals bats or owls, drops out, and all the persons with those cards must retire, and so on till only the ones left are the holders of the winning emblems, who may receive a small prize. There you are, you see, there's some fun Halloween activities for you to try, dating back, in this report anyway, to 1932. And our next report is from the Pittsworth Sentinel, dated the 29th of October 1948, and that is from Queensland, Australia. Halloween Ball. Although threatening weather continues during the early afternoon and evening prevailed yesterday, a very large attendance thronged the Masonic Hall last night, where the annual Halloween Ball, organised by the local younger set, was held. Visitors were present from all parts of the district, and fun was fast and furious at midnight, when a ghost from the spirit world appeared after many eerie announcements from the MC. The visitor bounced down the hall, falling down and worshipping the large witch prominently displayed at the end of the hall. The ghost moved around amongst the fair sex, creating panic, when he swept members off into a dance. Oh, you see what happens when you give the organisation over to the younger set? The decorative scheme, which was carried out under the supervision of Mr. D. Shanks, presented an attractive appearance. Festoons of streamers in shades of yellow and black were draped to each end of the hall, and centrepiece of 2 smaller hoops in rainbow shades created a gay splash of colour. Large hangings of the traditional Halloween shades of yellow and black, adorned with eerie faces, were hung around the walls, and black cats, bats, owls, and pumpkin faces used in decorative scheme were reminders of the supernatural tradition of Halloween. Large clusters of rainbow-shaded balloons were suspended from the ceiling, and the stage was effectively arranged with large bowls of Spanish, broom, and greenery. Mr. D. Shanks was an efficient MC and was aided in his duties by an amplifying system. Mr. D. C. Munro was doorkeeper. Smith's Orchestra supplied dance music, with extras by Messrs. M. Gallion and L. Easing. The euchre games were won by Messrs. C. Johnston and J. Snowden, gents, and Mesdames J. Seymour and W. Hardy, ladies. During the evening, novelty dances were held and were won by the following: Miss Dot Lewis and partner, and Mr. S. Fowler and Miss D. Fisher, spot waltzers, and Miss Lyle Clouts and her partner, Monte Carlo. A dainty buffet supper was served in a marquee erected outside the hall. You see, for all those Australian listeners, they've been celebrating Halloween in one form or another in this country for many, many, many decades, even if it was an interesting ball. And as further proof for that, let's look at the Sydney Morning Herald, dated Friday, the 1st of November 1935. Halloween, Sydney celebrations. Exactly 1,100 years ago, Pope Gregory IV instituted Halloween as a festival of the Christian Church. Right down through the ages, till the present day, Hallowmass has been an important festival day, and Halloween, the eve of All Hallows or All Saints' Day, is an important fixture in the Scottish calendar and has always been associated in the past centuries with mystical and supernatural doings, ghosts, and such things. Members of the Robert Burns 1933 Society of Australia last night, as in every other part of the world where Scottish people gather, celebrated Halloween with the Quadrilles, Eightsome Reel, the Highland Schottische, and the Highland Man's Glory. That was the elders' part, while the children gave displays of pretty Scottish folk dances. Dorkin for Apples, in which the performers, with knees on the seats of chairs, tried to stick floating apples with a fork protruding from their mouths, caused a great deal of merriment, while others tried their hands with the treacle scone. The merry-making lasted until nearly midnight, when another Hallowmas was added to the age-old festival. The president of the society, Mr. D.W. Brown, presided. There you are. You see another example of simply too much fun on Halloween in the past. And finally, we come to the Argus from Melbourne, Victoria, dated the 2nd of November 1942. Life of Melbourne, Halloween Party. At the American Red Cross Hospitality Centre on Saturday night, 200 girl hostesses, under the chaperonage of Mrs. Earl Minott, were introduced to a new form of entertainment for Australians, a Halloween party. The girls were dressed as witches, ghosts, ranchers, or other dashing personages, and they donned masks before entering the dance hall. American and other servicemen who were their dance partners were also masked, and in some cases wore fancy dress. Between dances, apple-eating contests and other forms of amusement were provided for the 400 guests. A splendid band and a crooner were the other attractions, which were much appreciated. And at the end of this little report it says, Sailors, Soldiers and Airmen's War Widows Association will meet tomorrow at 8 at Anzac House. The box plan for the War Loan preview at the Regent Theatre on November 19 will open at 10 a.m. today. Commencing today at Arts and Crafts Shop, Albany Court, there will be a 6 days display of hospital utensils made by Red Cross papier-mâché department. Wow, interesting stuff from, of course, 1942, the war years. And I imagine this situation here in 1942, where the Australians were introduced to a Halloween party, I guess that was a very American Halloween affair, as opposed to the ones we were reading earlier, which were more based on British traditions. Another interesting look into the Trove archives, and you too can see what you can find by visiting www.trove.nla.gov.au, putting in your search, and you never know what you'll find. And as that saying goes, the past is a different country. Thank you for listening to The Skeptic Zone, and thank you, Siobhan O'Sutherland, for a wonderful night. It was great to do a field report with Siobhan and Maynard, getting out there with microphones, wandering around. That's what, to me, that's what skepticism is all about, having a bit of fun and investigating. And please check out the extended content on YouTube with the link in this week's show notes. And yet another big thank you to Siobhan. She gifted Maynard and I, one each, a popping filter for recording work. Siobhan, much appreciated. In fact, I'm using it right now, and I used it just the other day when I was conducting a live interview on video, so thank you. It's not long now until Skepticon, the Joint Australian Skeptics New Zealand Skeptics Convention, 20th to the 21st of November. Get your tickets now at skepticon.org.au. Thank you to my wonderful Patreon and PayPal supporters who keep the show going. And if you'd like to contribute to the show, if you enjoy it, if you use it to get through your day, then maybe you can consider being a Patreon or PayPal supporter too. Just go to skepticzone.tv, click the link, and you can see some options there. But for this week, as I run out the door to run to the store to buy some lollies and candy for Halloween, because who knows who's going to be knocking at the Skeptic Zone door? Maybe Maynard. Yeah, I wouldn't put it past him. This is Richard Saunders signing off from Sydney, Australia. You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Please visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for show notes, contacts, and to access the back catalogue of episodes going back to 2008. You can follow the Skeptic Zone podcast on Twitter at Skeptic Zone, visit our Facebook page, or leave a review on iTunes. You can also support the Skeptic Zone via Patreon or PayPal. The Skeptic Zone podcast is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed on the Skeptic Zone are not necessarily those of Australian skeptics or any other skeptical organisation.